The first time I entered the Galactic Council Nexus, I felt smaller than I ever had in my life. The station floated at the heart of the galaxy, a city-sized monument where hundreds of civilizations gathered to decide the fate of trillions. Beneath its immense crystal dome, ambassadors argued over wars, borders, and alliances that had shaped history long before humanity discovered faster than light travel. Today, however, only one subject mattered. A wave of political assassinations had shaken even the oldest empires. Rulers, admirals, and diplomats had died despite fleets, advanced security systems, and armies of elite guards. Fear had replaced confidence. Every delegate demanded a solution before another leader fell and plunged the galaxy into war. I sat quietly in Earth's modest delegation, listening as the ancient powers debated. Humanity had joined the Council only a few decades earlier. To them, we were inexperienced newcomers with little to offer. None of them imagined that before this meeting ended, a single human idea would change the future of galactic security forever. The debate ended only when the Council's Chief Intelligence Director stepped onto the central platform. The chamber darkened as a black insignia appeared above him, a fractured circle surrounding a single crimson star. Every delegate recognized it immediately. The symbol belonged to the Obsidian Dominion, a terrorist organization that had existed only as rumor until recently. Now there was undeniable proof. Over the past 12 years, they had orchestrated the assassinations of 7 planetary rulers, 14 senior diplomats, and countless military commanders. They left no survivors, no captured agents, and almost no evidence. Every operation had been executed with impossible precision, making even the oldest intelligence services appear helpless. A new holographic image materialized before us. It showed a young woman wearing the white and gold uniform of the Solarian Empire. Princess Ariana Hale, future Empress. Her calm expression contrasted sharply with the flashing red warning surrounding her portrait. "Our analysts believe she is their next target," the director announced. A murmur swept across the chamber. If Princess Hale is killed, succession disputes will ignite across the imperial houses. Existing defense treaties will activate automatically. Border fleets will mobilize within hours. Current projections indicate an 89% probability of full-scale galactic war. The simulation changed. Hundreds of stars turned red one after another, spreading across the galaxy like a deadly infection. Trade collapsed. Colonies burned. Entire civilizations disappeared beneath expanding fronts of war. The prediction lasted only 20 seconds, yet the silence afterward felt endless. Representatives who had spent the previous hour arguing now stared at the display without speaking. Even the proudest empires understood the danger. They possessed larger fleets, stronger weapons, and technologies humanity could barely comprehend. Yet none of those advantages had stopped the Obsidian Dominion. The enemy did not attack armies. They struck individuals. One life could destroy an age of peace. Everyone searched for an answer, but none came. The speaker slowly scanned the chamber. "If no civilization has another proposal, we will suspend this session until new intelligence becomes available." No one moved. Then I stood. The sound of my chair sliding across the floor echoed far louder than it should have. Hundreds of eyes turned toward the human delegation. Some delegates looked surprised that I had risen at all. Others appeared mildly amused. Humanity rarely interrupted discussions led by the ancient powers, and few expected us to contribute to a crisis this severe. I walked to the center platform without haste. My heartbeat remained steady. Every step reminded me of the countless hours spent preparing for this moment. I had not come to impress anyone. I had come to offer the only solution I believed could work. "Honored representatives," I began, my voice carried evenly by the chamber's translators, "you have discussed stronger shields, smarter surveillance, larger security forces, and more advanced autonomous weapons." I paused, allowing the words to settle. All of those systems can be studied. A few delegates frowned. Every machine follows rules. Every algorithm has patterns. Every defensive network can eventually be predicted by someone patient enough to observe it. The chamber remained silent. On Earth, we learned a different lesson. I looked toward Princess Ariana Hale's image still floating above us. No security system can replace someone willing to give their life to protect another. The words echoed beneath the crystal dome. I propose assigning elite human protection specialists to defend high-ranking leaders. Their mission would not be to guard buildings or equipment. Their mission would be a single living person. They would adapt, improvise, and place themselves between the threat and the one they protect. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then laughter began to spread through the chamber. It started quietly before growing louder, rolling from one delegation to another. I remained standing, waiting for it to pass, knowing they had heard confidence where I had offered experience. The laughter spread across the chamber until it drowned out the low hum of the translation systems. Several delegates leaned toward one another, openly amused by what they had just heard. A representative from the Galactic Dominion wiped tears from his eyes before speaking. You expect us to replace quantum defense grids with one human standing in front of a target? Another delegate raised all four hands dramatically. Perhaps the bodyguard will frighten the assassins with primitive determination. More laughter followed. An elder from the Valoran Assembly finally addressed me directly. Ambassador, your species has been part of this council for less than 40 years. Many civilizations here have protected their rulers for thousands. Do you truly believe humanity understands executive security better than the founders of the Galactic Alliance? I believe, I answered calmly, that experience is only valuable if it produces results. The amusement faded slightly. You have lost leaders despite every technological advantage. The Obsidian Dominion has already proven it can defeat your systems. If the same methods continue, the same failures will follow. A military delegate struck his desk. Our combat drones react in less than a millisecond. A machine reacts, I replied. A protector decides. Several representatives exchanged uncertain glances. I continued before anyone interrupted. A bodyguard studies people, not only weapons. He notices hesitation, routine, fear, confidence, and the tiny changes that no algorithm considers important. He accepts that every plan will fail eventually and prepares for what comes afterward. The speaker watched me carefully but said nothing. Finally, Princess Ariana Hale herself rose from the imperial delegation. Unlike the others, she had not laughed once. She looked directly at me, curiosity replacing skepticism. If your specialists truly exist, she asked, would one willingly die to save someone he has never met? I met her gaze without hesitation. If necessary, I answered. That is the job. For the first time since I had taken the floor, the chamber became completely silent. The council reached no agreement that day. Most delegates dismissed humanity's proposal as idealistic, while others argued that trusting a single bodyguard over centuries of technological progress bordered on recklessness. The session ended without a vote, yet the discussion continued in private chambers long after the representatives departed. As I left the hall, an imperial officer approached me without ceremony. He wore the silver crest of the Solarian crown and handed me a sealed data crystal. The princess wishes to test your claim, he said quietly. One protector. Your best. Back on Earth, the request spread through the International Protective Service before reaching the desk of one man. Jake Carter. At that moment, he was standing inside a training facility, watching two young recruits practice emergency evacuations under simulated gunfire. He stopped the exercise every few minutes, correcting tiny mistakes that most instructors would never notice. A careless glance, an exposed doorway, a delayed reaction by less than a second. Again, he said. The recruits groaned but obeyed. Jake believed survival was built on habits, not heroics. His military career had taken him through hostage rescues, disaster zones, embassy evacuations, and conflicts where the difference between life and death often came down to one unnoticed detail. Decorations filled a cabinet he rarely opened. To him, medals were reminders that someone had failed to come home. His communicator vibrated. The message carried the highest international authorization Earth possessed. Report immediately. Executive Protection Priority Omega. Jake read it once, slipped the device into his pocket, and dismissed the class. No questions. No dramatic farewell. An hour later, he entered a secure briefing room where senior officials waited beside a hologram of Princess Ariana Hale. You've been selected, the director said. Jake studied the image in silence. When do I leave? Tomorrow. He nodded once. Then he asked the only question that mattered. What aren't they telling us about the threat? The briefing lasted 4 hours, yet Jake spoke fewer than 20 words. He listened as intelligence officers presented everything they knew about the Obsidian Dominion. Assassinations carried out across 5 sectors. Perfect escape records. Operatives who blended into crowds for years before striking without warning. Every attack exploited routine. Every victim had trusted a system instead of a person. When the presentation ended, Jake remained silent for several seconds before looking up. Show me everything they dismissed as insignificant. The room fell quiet. One analyst frowned. I am sorry? The reports, Jake replied. Minor incidents. False alarms. Equipment failures. Anonymous tips. Anything investigators labeled irrelevant. The director exchanged glances with the others before nodding. Thousands of forgotten files appeared across the holographic display. Jake smiled faintly. That's where they, LLB. Within 2 days he arrived at the Solarian Imperial Palace. Instead of inspecting weapons, he studied architecture. Instead of counting guards, he counted blind corners, maintenance shafts, service elevators, emergency exits, ventilation tunnels, and rooftops. He memorized every route the princess might use and every place she should never stand. His recommendations shocked the Imperial command. He ordered evacuation routes rewritten, guard rotations randomized, communication frequencies changed every 6 hours, entire ceremonial traditions cancelled, even palace staff schedules were reorganized. This is excessive, one Imperial general protested. Jake looked at him calmly. No, he answered. This is preparation. What exactly are you expecting? The attack nobody else sees. The general folded his arms. Our security doctrine has protected the imperial family for 7 centuries. Jake nodded. And yet someone believes they can still kill her. No one argued after that. By the end of the week the palace barely resembled the place Jake had first entered. Hidden escape corridors were reopened. Medical teams relocated. Surveillance responsibilities overlapped instead of following fixed sectors. Every member of the princess's household learned emergency procedures until they could perform them without thinking. Jake never claimed the plan would stop every attack. He only intended to make sure that if the Obsidian Dominion came, they would discover they had chosen the wrong target. A week later, Princess Ariana Hale departed for the largest diplomatic summit in the galaxy. The conference would bring together emperors, ministers, admirals, and ambassadors from more than 200 civilizations aboard the Celestial Forum station. For most guests, it was a celebration of unity. For Jake, it was the perfect place for an assassination. He arrived 6 hours before the princess. While Imperial officers inspected weapons and security checkpoints, Jake walked the station alone. He studied maintenance corridors, emergency lighting, ventilation ducts, cargo lifts, and service tunnels hidden behind polished walls. He spoke with janitors, engineers, kitchen staff, and medical personnel instead of senior commanders. People noticed details that cameras ignored. When Ariana's shuttle finally docked, Jake stood beside the entrance without saying a word. She smiled politely as she stepped onto the platform. Nervous? She asked. No. Confident? No. She looked puzzled. I am prepared, he replied. The welcoming ceremony began exactly on schedule. Music echoed through the enormous atrium as delegates filled the marble galleries. Everything appeared flawless, yet Jake immediately sensed that something was wrong. A maintenance worker carried an empty toolbox. 2 service drones repeated the same patrol instead of separating. Emergency lights flickered for less than a second. A security officer touched his earpiece 3 times without receiving a transmission. Tiny details, meaningless by themselves. Together, they formed a pattern. Jake pressed his communicator. Alpha team, change routes immediately. A confused voice answered, "Sir, that's not the approved movement plan. It is now." He redirected guards, relocated medical teams, canceled the Princess's public reception, and ordered 2 evacuation vehicles moved to different hangars. Imperial commanders protested every instruction, but he ignored them. Princess Ariana noticed the tension. "You think they're already here?" Jake scanned the crowded hall. "No," he answered quietly. "I know they are." Far above them, hidden behind decorative panels, someone disconnected the station's primary security network. The summit had entered its most dangerous hour. The explosion never came. Instead, the lights simply went out. For half a second the entire summit vanished into darkness. Then emergency illumination flooded the atrium with a cold red glow as alarms echoed through every deck of the station. Delegates froze in confusion while security officers shouted conflicting orders into suddenly silent communicators. Their encrypted channels were dead. The station's central network had been seized in an instant. Jake reacted before the first scream. "Move," he ordered. He grabbed Ariana's arm and pulled her away from the ceremonial platform just as shattered glass rained from the ceiling. 3 combat drones descended from hidden maintenance shafts, their identification beacons flashing Imperial authorization codes. Instead of protecting the crowd, they opened fire. Panic spread faster than the gunfire. Representatives scattered in every direction. Some guards rushed toward the attackers while others remained frozen, waiting for commands that would never arrive. Automated defense turrets rotated wildly, unable to distinguish civilians from terrorists after the network intrusion. Jake shoved Ariana behind a marble pillar. "Stay low." Without waiting for an answer, he seized a fallen security shield and intercepted a burst of plasma that would have struck a group of fleeing diplomats. The impact threw him backward, but he regained his footing instantly. "Follow me," he shouted. His voice cut through the chaos. Humans, aliens, diplomats, and station workers instinctively followed the only person who sounded completely certain. Jake ignored the main evacuation corridors. They would already be compromised. Instead, he led the survivors through a narrow maintenance access hidden behind decorative wall panels. Few even knew the passage existed. Behind them, explosions shook the station. Ahead, emergency doors slammed shut one after another as the terrorists attempted to trap fleeing civilians. Jake reached a manual override panel, ripped away its cover, and forced the mechanism open before the locking sequence completed. The heavy doors stopped inches from closing. "Keep moving," he yelled. Dozens of terrified civilians escaped through the opening. As the last survivor crossed the threshold, Jake looked back toward the burning summit hall. This had never been a simple assassination. It was the opening move of a war. Jake sealed the maintenance door behind the last civilian and counted the survivors without looking at a list. 216. Representatives from 17 species. 3 wounded. 1 unconscious child. No fatalities. For the moment, that was enough. Medic team, stabilize the injured. Engineers, barricade both entrances. Everyone else stays quiet. No one questioned him. The explosions above continued to rumble through the station, sending dust drifting from the ceiling. Emergency lights flickered along the forgotten corridor, revealing rusted pipes and abandoned service rails that had not appeared on the official station maps for decades. Princess Ariana stepped beside him. "The summit security has gone silent." "I know. Can they recover control?" Jake shook his head. "Not before the terrorists finish the first phase." She studied him. "You already know their plan." "I know enough." He knelt beside an old maintenance terminal and connected a portable scanner. The display confirmed his suspicion. Every surveillance camera, defense drone, and communication relay had been redirected through a hidden command node buried deep inside the station. "They not trying to escape," he said quietly. "They trying to keep everyone trapped." At that moment another group emerged from a side tunnel. 5 diplomats, 2 engineers, and 4 frightened station workers. Jake had predicted they would choose this route after the main corridors collapsed. Keep moving, he told them. Don't stop until you reach Section 9. One engineer stared at him. How did you know we were coming? Jake answered without looking up. Because I would have. The scanner suddenly emitted a sharp warning tone. A hidden blast door began descending across the tunnel ahead. Jake sprinted forward, wedged an emergency jack beneath the mechanism, and forced the door to halt just high enough for people to crawl under. Go! The civilians moved without hesitation. As Ariana crossed the opening, distant applause echoed through the station speakers. Someone was broadcasting the attack. Someone wanted the entire galaxy to watch what happened next. Every screen aboard the Celestial Forum station flickered at once. The emergency warnings vanished, replaced by a single image. A tall figure dressed in black armor stood inside the summit hall, his face hidden behind a polished obsidian mask. Behind him knelt Princess Ariana Hale, surrounded by armed operatives. Somehow, during the confusion, they had separated her from the evacuation route. Across the galaxy, billions watched the live transmission. My name is irrelevant, the masked figure said. History will remember only what happens today. His calm voice carried through every speaker. The Age of Empires ends with one death. He rested a hand on Ariana's shoulder. This air represents the illusion of stability. Remove the illusion, and civilization collapses. Jake watched the broadcast from a maintenance junction deep beneath the station. Around him, frightened civilians stared in disbelief. When Ariana had asked him earlier, now he knew. This had always been the destination. One of his communicators crackled. Sir, we have visual confirmation. The princess is alive. I can see that. They demanding negotiations. Jake shook his head. No. The terrorist leader smiled beneath the mask. If anyone attempts a rescue, the princess dies before they reach this chamber. Imperial commanders argued across every emergency frequency. Tactical teams demanded permission to storm the hall. Others insisted on waiting. Every option carried the same unacceptable risk. Jake disconnected his communicator. One of the surviving diplomats looked at him in horror. You, giving up? No, but you just turned off your radio. I don't need their permission. He removed his sidearm, ejected the magazine, and checked the remaining rounds. Then he unclipped his combat knife and placed both weapons carefully on the floor. The civilians stared. What are you doing? Ariana's chief advisor whispered. Jake stood. I am going to surrender. The words struck the room like another explosion. You'll be killed. Probably. Then why? Jake looked toward the tunnel leading back to the summit hall. Because they believe they already won. He walked away unarmed, leaving complete silence behind him. No one realized that surrender was the first move of the rescue he had planned from the moment the attack began. The terrorists marched Jake into the ruined summit hall with his hands raised. Cameras followed every step, broadcasting his surrender across the galaxy. Delegates watching from secure bunkers lowered their heads. Imperial officers cursed in frustration. To them, the human bodyguard had accepted defeat. That illusion was exactly what Jake wanted. The masked leader laughed as Jake stopped a few meters away. So this is humanity's greatest protector. Jake said nothing. You surrendered without firing a shot. Still no reply. The leader circled him slowly, searching for fear that never appeared. He found only calm eyes studying the room. Jake counted exits, measured distances, noted damaged pillars, loose cables hanging from the ceiling, shattered lighting fixtures, and the unstable platform supporting the broadcast equipment. Every detail became another piece of a plan assembled in silence. You disappoint me, the terrorist sneered. I expected resistance. You got it. Jake answered quietly. Before the masked man understood the meaning, Jake moved. He kicked a broken power conduit into a pool of coolant beneath the stage. Blue sparks exploded through the floor, plunging half the chamber into darkness. At the same instant he slammed a loose support beam into the nearest terrorist, sending him crashing into another. Their rifles discharged wildly, striking lights instead of people. Jake never reached for a weapon. He grabbed a hanging cable, swung behind a marble column, and drove his shoulder into the leader's chest. Both men crashed through the broadcast platform. Cameras spun wildly, showing only fragments of the fight. The terrorists fired blindly. Smoke filled the chamber. Jake dragged Ariana behind overturned debris before anyone realized she was gone. One by one, the attackers rushed toward his last known position. One by one, he used the collapsing environment against them. Falling beams, failing generators, shattered flooring, and blinding emergency strobes became his weapons. Less than 3 minutes after surrendering, the hall fell silent. Every terrorist lay unconscious or dead. Every civilian was alive. Across the galaxy, billions had just witnessed the impossible. The rescue spread across the galaxy within minutes. Every security agency demanded the complete recording, while military academies suspended their normal lessons to study Jake Carter's actions frame by frame. Analysts replayed the battle thousands of times, searching for hidden technology, advanced weapons, or classified equipment. They found none. Jake had relied on observation, timing, and the ability to adapt faster than the situation changed. Artificial intelligence simulations repeatedly failed to reproduce his decisions. Each program selected safer options, protected itself, or hesitated while calculating probabilities. Jake had done none of those things. He had accepted personal risk without hesitation because saving others mattered more than surviving. The official report reached the same conclusion in every language. No autonomous system currently known could have achieved the same outcome. That sentence unsettled the galaxy more than the attack itself. For centuries, advanced civilizations had trusted machines to make perfect decisions under pressure. Humanity had demonstrated that perfection was less valuable than instinct shaped by hardship and experience. A human protector noticed patterns no sensor recognized, accepted uncertainty without panic, and continued making decisions while every system around him collapsed. Princess Ariana addressed the council only 2 days later. "I survived because one man refused to depend on certainty," she declared. He trusted preparation, judgment, and sacrifice above technology. "We must learn from that." Her words marked the beginning of a profound change. Security academies rewrote their training manuals. Emergency doctrines abandoned rigid procedures in favor of adaptable human-led teams. Exercises began including unpredictable variables that no computer could anticipate. For the first time in galactic history, officers studied Earth not for its weapons or fleet, but for the philosophy behind its protectors. The age of automated certainty had ended. The age of the human shield had quietly begun. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened less than 48 hours after the attack. For the first time in its history, the chamber was completely united. No one argued. No one questioned the evidence. Every delegate had watched the recordings of Jake Carter's rescue, and every investigation reached the same conclusion. The Obsidian Dominion had been defeated not by superior technology, but by one man who refused to abandon the person under his protection. Princess Ariana Hale entered the chamber beside me. When she reached the speaker's platform, she faced the delegates with quiet confidence. "The Solarian Empire owes its future to humanity," she said. "Without Jake Carter, I would not be standing here today." She turned toward the human delegation. "On behalf of the Imperial Crown, I offer Earth an exclusive military alliance, unrestricted trade privileges, permanent representation within the Imperial Security Council, and every political honor our empire can bestow." The chamber erupted in applause. Every delegate expected humanity to accept immediately. Such an offer would place Earth among the most influential civilizations in the galaxy. I slowly rose from my seat. "We are honored by your generosity," I said. The applause faded, but humanity did not act for influence. The chamber became silent. "We are not seeking power." I looked around the hall. meeting the eyes of rulers who only weeks earlier had dismissed humanity as an inexperienced civilization. We simply want every civilization to have the chance to live without fear. No one spoke. Jake Carter did not risk his life to gain territory. He did not protect the princess to earn political favors. He stood between innocent lives and danger because that is what protectors do. I inclined my head respectfully toward Princess Ariana. If our actions have earned your trust, then let that trust belong to everyone. Instead of accepting privilege, Earth proposed a new Galactic Security Accord. Human executive protection specialists would train security personnel from every member civilization, sharing the principles that had saved the princess: preparation over prediction, adaptability over rigid procedure, teamwork over pride, and the unwavering commitment to place another life before your own. The proposal passed unanimously. That day, humanity gained something far greater than power. It gained the respect of the galaxy. Many years later, I stood once again beneath the crystal dome of the Galactic Council Nexus. The Obsidian Dominion existed only in history archives, while the Galactic Security Accord had become the foundation of executive protection across known space. Every academy taught the doctrines first demonstrated by a quiet human named Jake Carter. Jake himself had refused every medal and every title. He returned to Earth and resumed training the next generation of protectors, insisting that saving lives mattered more than being remembered. A council historian closed his record with words engraved inside the Hall of Guardians. We believed the greatest protection came from weapons, armor, and machines. Then one Imperial heir placed her life in the hands of a human. We expected an ordinary bodyguard. Instead, we witnessed a man who changed history without seeking glory. On that day, the galaxy discovered that humanity's greatest strength was never its weapons. It was its willingness to become a shield for others.